taking a deep dive into the stories that matter to Houstonians, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. With the generous support from our founding sponsor, John Bradshaw.
For today, we'll have sunny skies, high getting near 60. Right now, we have 53 degrees. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Welcome to Hello Houston. Coming up this hour, University of Houston political science professor Brandon Rottinghouse joins us to discuss a new deal to reopen the government, Governor Abbott seeking a fourth term, and more. I'm Ernie Manouse.
And I'm Celeste Díaz Schurman. Also, Bill King, a fellow in public finance at Rice University's Baker Institute, will join us to discuss the impact the shrinking immigration population is having on America's economic outlook.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, we'll chat with legendary trumpeter Wynton Marsalis. He'll tell us about an upcoming concert that he's leading with the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra.
Also, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. The Senate has taken a major step toward ending the government shutdown. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports lawmakers voted last night to advance a deal that could allow the government to reopen later this week.
The package includes a stopgap measure to fund the government through the end of January. It also includes full-year appropriations funding plans for some federal agencies and services. It will pause planned cuts to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP. It also reverses federal worker layoffs installed by the Trump administration during the shutdown and protects the workforce from more cuts for a few months to the end of January.
That's NPR's Claudia Grisales reporting. The Supreme Court has declined to revisit its 2015 ruling that legalized same-sex marriage nationwide. The justices rejected an appeal from former Kentucky clerk Kim Davis, who refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples after that decision. Davis sought to overturn an order requiring her to pay $360,000 in damages and legal fees. President Trump has issued a sweeping pardon of his allies related to the 2020 presidential election. The pardon names numerous campaign attorneys and people who met 5 years ago. NPR's Miles Parks reports that's when they tried to create alternate electoral slates.
The document pardons all those associated with a plot to make false electoral slates that could have potentially interfered with the presidential certification on January 6, 2021. It names Trump campaign attorneys Rudy Giuliani, Kenneth Chesebro, Mark Meadows, and John Eastman, as well as dozens of other people who met often in secret to sign documents claiming they were legitimate electors in states actually won by Joe Biden. The pardons are essentially symbolic, as none of the people pardoned have been charged with federal crimes. Some are charged in their individual states, but the pardon has no impact on those cases. Miles Parks, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump is meeting with the president of Syria today. NPR's Jane Aref reports.
President Ahmed Ashara will be the first Syrian head of state at the White House in almost 80 years. He's a former al-Qaeda in Iraq militant leader. A year ago, he had a $10 million U.S. bounty on his head. His fighters toppled dictator Bashar al-Assad last December, and since then, Trump has decided that Shara is someone he wants to deal with. Most sanctions on Shara and Syria have been removed, but there are still some to be lifted. Trump is expected to invite Syria to join U.S.-led efforts fighting the militant group ISIS. For NPR News, I'm Jane Araf in Amman.
Stocks are trading higher on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow was up 90 points, the Nasdaq up 378. This is NPR News in Washington.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Firefighters this morning responded to a large blaze at a popular pub in Clear Lake. Multiple outlets report that Molly's Pub went up in flames earlier. First responders arrived at the building around 6:30 this morning. They encountered heavy smoke and flames when they arrived on scene. It's unclear at this point if there were any employees in the building or how the fire started, but aerial footage from local news stations show the roof partially collapsed. Arson investigators are looking into the cause of the blaze. Tomorrow is a federal holiday as the nation takes time to honor veterans. News 88.7's Rob Salinas attended an event yesterday in Kemah where runners came dressed as Forrest Gump to raise money for vets.
Manuel Gonzalez is an Army vet who came dressed up as Forrest Gump when he first started his run across America wearing a button-up shirt and khaki pants.
What brought you out here today?
Well, I just felt like running.
Yeah, I walked into that one.
The 5K run and Forrest Gump look-alike contest is a first for the Bubba Gump restaurant in Kemah. Jacob Bigger is the general manager for the Kemah Boardwalk.
It's fun to get out here, the nostalgia of Bubba Gump, and then running and fitness and family and fun, and then also philanthropy, and we're able to have those proceeds go to our veterans.
The money raised will go towards the Gary Sinise Foundation. Sinise played Lieutenant Dan in the movie and has actively raised money for vets for more than 20 years. I'm Rob Salinas, News 88.7.
Colder weather is here to stay for the near future. That's according to Justin Ballard, a meteorologist with the Houston Chronicle. He spoke with Houston Matters this morning, who says a cold front has arrived.
I think there will be a little bit more widespread 30s tonight because the wind will ease. We've had some breezy conditions that certainly kept, wind chills in the 30s early this morning. But that wind also precludes frost from developing. So tonight, I think that wind will ease. We'll see the potential for frost.
The high is 61 degrees today. Tomorrow will warm up during the day to the low 70s. A red flag warning is in effect until 6 o'clock tonight due to windy conditions and a lack of rain. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870. Or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
If you were playing cards today, you would win because we have a full house.
We do have a full house.
We do. Happy Monday, Houston.
Nice chilly Monday.
It feels like a great
Frank,
fall
thank
day.
you.
I know, and you know what? It's going to be even colder overnight tonight because the wind is going to calm down. It's a little windy.
It is
now.
a little windy.
So that wind's going to calm down, and that means that the air is going to even get colder because all of the heat, such as we have it, will escape. What we call radiational cooling, if you're interested.
Right.
We're looking at maybe 40 downtown, 50 in Galveston, but everybody else in the 30s tonight. The 30s. I know. It hasn't happened since April. So, yes. And then weirdly, because of this Carter Lake Dam issue up in Polk County, there's a flash flood watch in effect for Polk County simply because they haven't quite, the engineers, I think, are saying that they got it under control, but they're not going to let residents that could be affected by any kind of a dam break back to their homes for, I think, 3 days. But that's kind of an organic story that just keeps on updating. Yeah. But can you imagine? Here we are on this beautiful day with a flash flood watch. So you never know how it's going to shake out. Anyway, you like the cold weather? Is this your kind of weather?
I love it. This is my kind of weather.
Is it your kind
I
of
was
weather?
born in November. I'm born November 28th. It's my birthday. So this is like, I'm in my jam. Like,
it is?
Feeling
we
good.
hadn't heard anything about your birthday.
I feel like this is great.
Is that the day you were born?
It's my season.
The angels got together?
Yes. And I was actually born on Thanksgiving, and I'm not going to say what year, because I was about to. And my dad announced me as we have a 6-pound,
turkey.
Turkey. That's how I entered this world, y'all.
And that's how she's going to go out. It's good to be back here. It's good to be doing this. It's good to be doing it in the cool. And we've got a lot going on because it may be cool out there, but politics is heating up.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of crazy out there. You want to take us into headlines right away?
Sure. A bipartisan group of Senate Democrats and Republicans reached a deal to reopen the government after the longest shutdown in U.S. history, voting on the first procedural step on the measure. The agreement would fund the government through January 30th and include full-year funding for a trio of appropriation bills, including full funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, through September 30th of 2026, or the end of the fiscal year. The vote late on Sunday was 60-40, with 7 Democrats and 1 independent joining with most Republicans to advance the measure. And joining us now to discuss this new deal is University of Houston political science professor and co-host of Houston Public Media's Party Politics, and one of our friends of the show, Brandon Rottinghouse. To get your questions and comments in, give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870. Brandon, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, Brandon, help me with this first part of it, and then we'll dig deeper into all of it. But so the agreement they reached did include the extension of SNAP benefits for the year that they were wanting. The
Correct.
Democrats were wanting to get.
Correct. Yeah, there was a lot of discussion. In fact, I saw that it would be a cold day in Houston before the shutdown would end, and here we are.
It's
a
cold day.
Houston.
There you go.
So,
That's a
yeah,
good one.
It I think was largely continuation of where things were before. You've got essentially back to status quo in terms of hiring of workers and firing of workers. Those things all revert back to where they were, and there can be no more between now and when the continuing resolution is likely to be set in the end of January. It obviously was a bit of a challenge for Democrats, who now see a kind of split strategy. Some saying we should have kept the fight and held on, and some saying that it's better to compromise and fight later in elections.
But Schumer said on the Senate floor, he kind of laid out what the Democrats would agree to. What did he get and what didn't he get? Because only a handful of Democrats joined in. So Schumer didn't get what he wanted. What was missing?
He didn't get much of what he wanted. There was an effort to try to get a passage of Obamacare subsidies. That didn't happen, at least in terms of the financial side of things. Mm-hmm. They're going to get a vote. That's essentially what they got. But that's not enough probably to get it passed. In fact, there's still real concern that it actually might not pass. So I think that Schumer's ability to kind of navigate the caucus is really in jeopardy here. This was a moment where Democrats and Republicans were playing chicken, and it seemed like it took forever, like the scene from Footloose, right, where they're like going against each other in the
to the song "Holding Out for a Hero"
Indeed.
by Bonnie Tyler.
Of course, a classic, right?
So, do you think the Democrats are counting on everyone actually getting that subsidy increase and the premium increase in their mailboxes and going and the public starting to rally around this whole issue in December?
That's the hardest thing to fight over in elections, about what to fight about. Sometimes winning and losing is really a question of whether or not you've picked the issue you can win on. So for Democrats, they think they can win on this issue. And they're probably right. If you look at the polling on this, 70+% of the American public wants to see these extensions. And if you look at how much it's costing people across the board, it's a definite hit to the pocketbook. So Democrats are, I think, looking at this as a positive. They lost, but it's a short-term loss. The long-term gain for them is going to be that they can have this as the issue in 2026.
And I would also say that coming out of the elections of 2025 that we had just a few nights, last week, Democrats had some pretty big wins.
They did. And I think that's why many of them were thinking they can hold on. They can actually get the leverage here politically. But I think there were still enough 8 Democrats, the hateful 8 I've seen people refer to them on in social, that were willing to cross over. The appetite for blood sport among the moderates was pretty low. And so I think that they were willing to kind of sort of take a step towards making this change and trying to get around the leaders who did want to hold on and fight on.
Okay, take me back then for a second. Why then even the shutdown to begin with? Because if, in fact, now the philosophy is wait until, as Frank said, the bills start coming in and people start seeing the subsidies gone away and the prices going up on your insurance, that would have happened anyway.
Yeah.
So they would have avoided this shutdown over this period, and they'd be in the same position where people are starting to say, hey, what are the Republicans doing to our health care?
Yeah.
And they would have won that way. What was the point of all this?
Yeah, I think one thing it does is just really put an emphasis on it. It puts a highlight on the text to say that this is something the Republicans are, against and Democrats are in favor
willing
of.
to fight for.
Yeah, and it did show it.
Who knows how the last elections would have actually come out had they not been in this shutdown? Do you think that maybe had something to do with it?
For sure. At least some of what was happening was that Democrats were kind of cued into the healthcare issue and the pocketbook issue. Yep. Affordability is the key word for 2026, and I think Democrats were able to at least put that marker down.
And I also think that we're assuming essentially people would say, oh, look at the Democrat or Republicans, what they've done versus why are Democrats not doing anything to stop this from happening?
Yeah. The Democratic base wanted to see a little bit of red blood. They wanted some fight in this, and they effectively got it. Ultimately, it's probably a political loss, and Schumer is definitely going to be in jeopardy here of losing his role and possibly his job to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But I do think that for Democrats that they were able to limp through this and get the strategy. Of course, there's a lot of people who were hurt in the meantime as a result. So I think it's a challenging position for them to be in. But in 6 months that people won't remember. In a year from now when the elections come, it'll be a distant memory. So I think for Democrats, they were able to get temporarily what they wanted, but long term, they're looking for something else.
But when those premium bills come every month, and I saw a New York Times article where they took 8 people and showed us what their premiums are doing, and some of them are doubling from $1,200 a month to $2,400 and even higher. So I think people are going to be reminded every month, hey, this has to be fixed.
That's
right,
so
and
true.
people vote essentially with their pocketbook. I mean, that's
Always.
what we saw something, happening out when we saw this last election.
That's exactly true. And I think that for Democrats, they're satisfied with this, even though it did mean some kind of growing pains in the meantime. It does give them an issue to run on. And if you look down the chain at the candidates running in some big swing states, there's definitely, I think, an effort afoot from Democrats to be able to fight on this and also to be able to focus on affordability. So it's not just kind of who's in office now, it's about the Democrats that are running. In fact, we're seeing James Tallarico, for instance, one of the contenders to the Democratic side of the primary here in Texas, saying that, we should have fought on, but definitely Obamacare subsidies are like a huge component of what we need to do in Washington to fix it.
So just before we leave this particular topic, help us with the timeline, because a lot of news got made last night.
Right.
Nothing has really happened since last night.
That's true. It's going to take a couple of days probably to work this out. For one, the House has a rule that they have to give 36 hours of notice in order for there to be a vote taking place. In fact, some are saying that they were promised 48 hours. So it's going to take a little time for that. Plus, they have to get all the senators back and they have to organize the vote. So it's going to take a couple of days before things are back to normal. But at least in principle, there's a deal here.
Once they vote it through, if it gets voted through in both houses and the president, I assume, is signing it in, how long are we talking before people start to see SNAP benefits going again, government back open, flight folks back at work as they should be, which is left of them?
That's a great question. Yeah, somebody who flew this weekend, you can certainly see the kind of freneticness at the airport and concern. It'll be a couple days. The other thing to note, though, in terms of timing is that this continuing resolution that they're proposing will only go through the 30th of January. So we may be fighting this very fight again. I'll be back here, in January to talk through it again.
Back to Frank's point, once those premium bills start coming in, when this comes up again, there's going to be a lot more people behind the let's find a solution part.
Did I see that right? That Trump has said to the to the workers, the flight control workers, $10,000 bonuses. I'm recommending $10,000 bonuses, but you have to come back right now.
Okay, well, that probably would work, I suspect, since people are probably hurting financially. That's definitely useful, and I think, again, the president isn't...
But can he do that? I mean, can he really give them that bonus, or he just recommends it?
He's promising, but maybe without the ability to deliver. Now, the House can, of course, offer that in part of the continuing resolution, so there's some chance that'll happen. And I think one thing this did show us was that as much as the Democrats are a little bit out of step right now with each other, the Republicans are very unified. So when Trump says it, it's as good as gold.
Okay, let's bring us a little closer to home. We did, as Celeste mentioned, we had elections on Tuesday last week. It seems like a year ago. But now we know, Texas 18th going into a runoff, but the governor hasn't set the date for it yet. What's the deal there? And how long does he have till he has to set the actual deal?
Yeah, by law, they have to wait in terms of canvassing the overseas votes. So people who are in the military, for instance, all send their votes in. They have to be looked at. And so it can take a little bit of time. That's why it won't be in the same cycle as the runoff, say, for the city council. It'll be a little bit longer. This is actually interesting as a political strategy because it does give both candidates the opportunity to kind of reset. It's hard to campaign during the holidays. You've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas, you've got Hanukkah. There's a lot of different sort of things happening. People aren't as attentive to politics as they often are. So it's probably for them a good thing to have a bit of a pause. They can regroup, raise some money, and then focus.
But can he just set the date? Can he say January 17th, random date? now while they're canvassing, while they're doing all that. But as I understand, he hasn't even done that.
He has not done that. He's been pretty sluggish in terms of making those things. Obviously, the 18th is a good example of that in general. Maybe there was some politics at play, but he's also been usually pretty slow to put these together, maybe just because of the legal question about how long exactly it's going to take. So he's probably not going to set this until...
He has to wait so long, but he can't go any longer than, was it 77 days or something like that? There's caps on when it has. But he hasn't even started the process of claiming the election is settled before the clock starts, I guess, is the game he's playing.
Exactly, yeah. I'm guessing probably we won't know until after the first of the year exactly when, maybe in December. It'll just, I think, be a question of kind of when they think they can get this done by, making sure they hit those numbers.
All right, we have a call for you, Brandon. You want to put your headphones on there. This is Roberto from the Museum District for Brandon Rottenhouse, who is our steady U of H political science professor. Roberto, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. And actually, I want to correct you, Frank.
Okay.
This question is for you. Because I admire your intelligence. And last week, it left you a compliment. You should run for Supreme Court Justice because you're so intelligent. But listen, Frank, and anybody else can answer, of course. But I am so sick and tired of both of these parties. They're both right and they're both wrong. Okay? We have a horrible health insurance. We're the worst health insurance system in the world. And we keep bragging how rich we are. I'm hoping that there'll be an independent party movement. I think that's a solution and maybe a long shot. Elon Musk even talked about it. And let's face it, nobody's perfect, but he's got a lot of money. I hope he brings it back up. So, Frank, what do you think? Isn't it time for independent party? Are you real serious matter?
You know what? I heard the other day that Mark Cuban would make a great candidate and maybe in the independent party. What do you think, Brandon?
I think he's definitely got some high points. He's well known. He's seen as an innovator. The Shark Tank, I think, kind of eyeballs is a good start. That's something that politics now really needs. Independent candidacy, though, is really a challenge.
It's financially a big challenge.
Yes.
But, perhaps to Roberto's point, either we will see more moderate Republicans or more moderate Democrats, and we'll find, remember when we were 52-48 either way, maybe we'll get back to that split so that we all can agree. I mean, any good negotiation, nobody gets everything, but everybody gets something.
Right.
And it's kind of this healthcare situation.
Yeah.
Nobody got everything they wanted, but everybody got something they wanted. So at the end of the day, it was probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone goes away unhappy,
right?
Which is really a mark of success in an odd way. But I think that's a good point. And you look at the polling in Texas, it definitely reflects the fact that people are unhappy with things. There are significant percentages of people who say that the state's on the wrong track. They look at the economy and say it's not a good model for the rest of the nation. So we're seeing some pretty damaging metrics in terms of how people feel about where Texas is and where the economy is. So I think this is a sentiment that a lot of people share.
And I do have one other question for you, but I wanted to ask you, since we are kind of on this topic right now, what do you think that there's that kind of looking at this new set of politics? I don't know if that's the right word, but Zoran Mamdani. I mean, I think that. What do you think of that?
That's a good
That's
example.
kind of an outlier coming out in New York.
I think that's a great example and one that shows how you can show your personality and have it be a really successful political digital strategy. They were able to connect people where they lived with the kind of politics that he was engaging in, and that's a really powerful tool. So I do think that's a moment that can really work. And a lot of people are pointing to the nature of generational change in politics as part of that, and I think that does mean something, especially for younger people who aren't as engaged. And when they see people like themselves running for office, they get more engaged.
Does he become, though, the voice of the direction of the Democratic Party, or is it more the Gavin Newsom, which is kind of the fight fire with fire, but seen not really old establishment, but a little where Mamdani looks like such a new, unique direction.
He seems like an outlier. Yeah.
Is that really where a party as a whole nationwide can go, or is he just a fluke? And I don't mean disrespect with that term.
No, and I think that's a good point. And the kind of consideration of Mamdani as like a kind of outlier here is useful. A lot of people look at the Democratic Party and see a big tent, and that there are different ideological directions that can be taken. So somebody like an Abigail Spanberger couldn't really run successfully in New York City, and vice versa is true as well. So you have to find the right candidate for the right place. And the tent, in theory, is big enough to accommodate everybody.
All right, we have another call. I just want to throw this name out, Josh Shapiro.
Yes.
I think he is a real contender out of Pennsylvania. James is on the line from Conroe. James, what are you thinking here?
Okay, yes, and I thought of one more question, but I'll be quick. Okay, so my wife and I, it's like very difficult for us to afford her health care premium. Now, with the rise in prices, it's absolutely impossible. Mm-hmm. She will become uninsured. So is the Republican goal to kill the Affordable Care Act? Because it sure seems like it to me. And then the second question, like I said, I'll be brief. Mandami, okay, socialism is anti-poverty programs such as Social Security. Why is there so much ignorance towards social programs that could benefit the public? Okay, that's it. I'll hang up and listen.
I think Ted Kennedy is the one that messed up that term when he started talking about socialized medicine in the 70s, and it got a bad rap. But yeah, Social Security is socialism. Medicare, Medicaid, all social. Even university scholarships could be considered socialism because we're all helping young people get an education on our government, not like the Pell Grants. So I agree. Why are people so against the idea?
It's a label, and I think a lot of times those labels have charged meanings, and that can create this complication where people read something into it that's not there. There's no doubt that the nation is a mix of capitalistic and socialistic elements, and depending on the policy, it goes in a bunch of different directions. I think the question here is how much should government help? And that's really the kind of debate that Republicans and Democrats have. To the first question that James had about the way that Obamacare subsidies are going to go and whether Obamacare itself will survive, I think that is a ship that sailed. I think that this has to be part of the fabric of the politics of things. And so you're not seeing efforts from Republicans to destroy Obamacare. But that doesn't mean it won't be starved or trimmed. And I think that's kind of what the fight is today.
But Mamdani, I think the problem with that and why he got labeled that is that it's not just programs to help. They're very broad. All the buses should be free, all these things, where he really doesn't have subsidized housing and all that. He doesn't really have the pocketbook to pay for any of it. So that's why why people consider him extreme.
I think that's right. And it seems unfair, I think, to kind of put too much on his shoulders when it comes to kind of what the liberal branch of the Democratic Party is thinking about. But definitely he'll be the trendsetter on that.
Put a lot on his shoulders himself.
Yeah, but it'll be whoever runs for president will be the one who kind of sets the standard for Democrats. And a lot of Democrats are anxious for that because, as you can see from this fight about the shutdown, they're not that unified about exactly how to proceed.
Right. And speaking of proceeding, on Friday, Congressman Al Green officially announced his campaign for Texas 18th Congressional District. Not that surprising, would you say, Brandon? Or do you think this is going to really change the course of this next election?
I'm not that surprised. He was coy about running again, and I think he feels like he got cheated out of his seat. And the redistricting obviously is going to create a lot of these changes. So I am not that shocked that he's deciding to do this, but it's going to be a pretty serious battle for the heart of the Democratic Party. And it is really, as I said, a kind of story about generational change and the degree to which the Democrats are willing to move on or they want to see, the kind of same players on the field.
To put a button on all of that, is this really going to be a shift where we are going to move to younger, fresher candidates, or are we just going to talk about it for a while on the Democratic side, and then when it comes time, you're going to get all the old tried and true? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is sort of who votes, and we know that older people vote in the Democratic Party especially. So this is definitely a kind of concern for, I think, the kind of candidates in the runoff right now who are trying to not only game what it's going to take to win the runoff, but also, how are you going to take on Al Green, who's a powerhouse, in this part of Houston.
Right, which we had Professor Adams from TSU on, and that's exactly what he said, was essentially that in that demographic in District 18, we understand that the people that come out to vote, the demographic is usually African-American older women. And so I think that this really does somewhat throw a wrench in for Christian Menefee and Amanda Edwards.
It does, and that's really the question. Turnout is going to be the key. It's an unusual set of elections, right? We're having this in a time where most people are not that attentive to things.
Right.
And then, of course, you have a complete and total shift of the 18th Congressional District. About half the people that were in the district now will not be in the district in the next cycle. So this churn definitely creates confusion. And a confused voter is a non-voter.
One of the reasons everyone's looking at New York City. Suddenly, you did go young, and the old voters did vote young. Everyone seemed to vote young. So it's interesting.
Love having you here, man. You always put it in perspective.
University of Houston political science professor and co-host of Houston Public Media's Party Politics, Brandon Rottinghouse. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, y'all.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we're going to talk with Bill King, a fellow in public finance at Rice University's Baker Institute, about the shrinking immigration population. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold Brewing Company, proud supporters of Houston Public Media. Right now, with your $60 donation, you can choose tickets to News and Brews. This member-exclusive event takes place February 17th. Enjoy a pint, connect with fellow NPR fans, and meet the Houston Public Media Newsroom in person. Select News and Brews tickets when you donate at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
88.7.
On Fresh Air, you'll hear from people who really make you think, like astrophysicist Brian Greene explaining the scientific theory that our universe is just one of many.
And the image that I like to have in mind is, imagine that our universe is like one slice of bread in a much grander cosmic loaf, with the other slices of bread being other universes.
No subject is too big for Fresh Air. Join us.
Fresh Air, weekdays at 8 p.m. on News 88.7.
Support comes from Berkman International, providing insights into workplace dynamics and individual needs to help organizations develop talent, improve communication, strengthen retention, and drive innovation. More at berkman.com/connect.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, join country music performer Trace Adkins for a Veterans Day celebration with the U.S. Army Field Band, Angel Blue and Kurt Elling. It's Salute to Service 2025, tonight at 8 on TV8.
Support comes from Blake Hillegeist Real Estate, independent commercial and residential real estate broker with over 30 years experience guiding clients through economic downturns, realty challenges, and everyday life situations. More at BlakeSellsHouston.com. Support comes from Alley Theater. Performances of A Christmas Carol, presented by UT Health Houston, begins November 16th and features Ebenezer Scrooge and the spirits who teach the meaning of the holiday season. More at alleytheater.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
For the first time in decades, the U.S. immigrant population is shrinking, a major shift that could have big effects on the economy and the country's future. Fewer immigrants mean slower population growth, fewer workers, and new challenges for industries that rely on labor from abroad. Today, we're looking at what's driving this decline, how recent immigration policies under President Donald Trump play a role, and what it all means for America's economic outlook. Joining us is Bill King, a fellow in public finance at Rice University's Baker Institute. He is also the author of a book coming out next month, Depopulation, Our New Demographic Reality. Bill, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thanks. Happy to be back.
And if you would like to join the conversation, if you have a question or comment for Bill, you can give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870. Now, Bill, what can you tell us about the latest information coming out of Homeland Security and basically just the status of immigration and foreign-born population right now in the United States?
Yeah, so I think it's important to set the context here.
Mm-hmm.
The birth rate has been falling all over the world for decades, and here in America, we're now down to 1.6 children per woman. You have to have 2.1 for the population not to decline. So we are already have a very, very low natural increase in population, births over deaths. Okay. And that's because of some previous generations, but that's going to go away very rapidly. The Congressional Budget Office says that the last year that we will ever have natural population growth is 2028. So just 2 years from now.
Wow.
And after that, you know, if we don't have immigrants coming in, the U.S. population will begin to decline.
Is that because people are marrying later in life, and so they sort of only have a couple children because they get married after 30?
It's a confluence of a bunch of different factors, but the most important one is women having options. You know, if you look at countries around the world and what the birth rate is, there's a perfect correlation between the amount of education that women get and the birth rates. The more education, the fewer births. And I went to law school here at this university in 1976, and it was the first class that there were more women in a law school class than there were men. And so if you have those kind of career opportunities, you're at least going to put off having children. If you put off having children, then you're going to have fewer children. For millennia, human beings averaged having about 5 to 8 children per couple. And today, worldwide rate's about 2.2.
Oh, you needed help on the farm.
Well, there were all sorts of things. Also, a lot of children didn't survive, and so you had to have extra ones,
But, Bill, obviously looking at the birth rate, it's declining. But when we look at immigration in the United States, it's always fluctuated.
Right.
It's always gone up and down. Can you give us a little bit of context in regards to what is healthy immigration? When is it natural to have pauses or tighten up, essentially, policy around immigration?
Well, of course, that's a matter that's being hotly debated within the United States today.
Right.
I would say historically we've let in about 1 million people. That's been kind of the baseline.
Every year?
Yes, every year.
Currently, how many immigrants do we have right now living in the U.S.? Do we know?
Well, it depends on how you're counting. If you're talking about every foreign-born person, it's somewhere around 49 or 50 million people, maybe a little bit higher than that. If you're talking about the number of people that are here that are not authorized to be here, best guess is probably somewhere around 14 or 15 million people. So we've always had a very large immigrant population in the United States. The Americans have this sort of love-hate relationship with immigration. When the immigration gets up about 15% or so, then you normally get one of these backlashes against immigration. It feels like things are changing too fast. There's strange people. I don't like what they wear and how they talk and everything. And then that kind of burns off over a period of time. We're currently in one of those backlashes, and there's been several throughout American history. But look, if you don't want the population to go down, okay, and people debate whether that's a good thing or not. But just to give you the sort of metrics, the Census Bureau has predicted that if we don't have any immigration, if we just stop immigration altogether, the U.S. population will fall from about 340 million today down to less than 230 million by the end of the century. So we lose a third of our population by the end of the century, just 75 years from now.
That's how much of our income goes with that.
Well, it's the populations of California, Texas, Florida, and New York combined disappearing from the country in 75 years. That's going to have a lot of consequences.
Sure.
You mentioned that there have been backlashes against immigrants coming in different times throughout our history. What changed those tides? What was it that shifted us back to the more, I don't know if welcoming's the right word, but more open borders?
So as the percentage goes down, then people start getting more accustomed to it. And also, after a couple of generations, most people start acting a lot more like Americans. So remember there was, Irish need not apply, type signs up in New York at one time. And so as we do a great job in this country of taking people from all over the world, grinding them up and turning out Americans, and immigrants are typically the most fiercely patriotic people, in the country. And so I don't think there's any reason to believe that's going to change. And so I think over time, we'll figure this out. But we've had this, Biden's immigration policy really set us back on this scale because we let in a bunch of people that shouldn't have been let in, and they did some terrible things. And so those are the ones that get all the attention, even though they're a very tiny percentage of the immigrants came across. Still, that's a problem.
How reliable are the numbers that we're receiving from different sources, for example, Homeland Security, in regards to how many immigrants or undocumented people have left or deported or have been actually sent back?
So do you know what a WAG is?
No.
It's a wild guess.
Okay.
I read your blog. I like that. I know. It's like CYA. So I read your blog, and you indicated to Celeste's question, they're actually pretty accurate numbers. I mean, they seem like they're exaggerated, that these many people have left the country on their own.
Right.
Others have been...
How do we consolidate
we
those
really
numbers?
We really don't know. But there are a number of reliable sources out there that do a lot of surveys on this who think that a lot of people have left the country. DHS says that 2 million people have left, 500,000 being deported, 1.5 million leaving voluntarily. Pew Foundation, which is a really excellent research group, said that 1.4 million have left. The Center for Immigration Studies, which is another good outfit, said 2.2 million have left. These are numbers we've never seen before. The one thing that I sort of got my attention was before the shutdown and when the Labor Department was still issuing data, they said there almost 1 million. We had almost 1 million less foreign-born workers than we had 6 months ago. Those are pretty significant numbers. So it looks like something's going on, but it's very, very hard to measure this because these are people that mostly don't want to be found. They're not really they don't like answering survey, which is the way that a lot of these numbers are accumulated. We've been looking for it here in Houston at Baker, trying to figure out if we can see some numbers. And I got to tell you, so far, we're not really detecting much of a change in the Houston area.
Let me ask you about the domino effect. So, for instance, you have 5 workers. You own a business, you have 5 workers. 2 of them leave. So now you've got to replace them. You may not be able to find 2 workers to work for that salary. So you're going to have to increase your salaries if you're going to find reliable people to come work. So now your business is hurting in a way that you didn't expect. So there are these domino effects when we say, oh, people who shouldn't be here should get out. But they not only take part of the economy, they leave holes in the economy that are hard to fill.
Well, the Restaurant Association, we recently had a conversation with them, and they're facing exactly these problems, and their wages are rising because of that.
And that means my food costs are going to go up.
Right. But, of course, the people on the other side of this issue would say, well, that's the reason we don't want them here is because they're taking lower wages and keeping Americans from getting higher wages on things. So there's an argument on each side of this. But the problem you really have right now is that increasingly we don't have any Americans to take those jobs. Mm-hmm. Looking at the demographics in this room, I don't think any of us are going to go out and bus tables or wash dishes or those kinds of things.
Oh, there are days.
Well, other than what my wife makes me do. Right. But so demographically, Native Americans, people who are born here, are getting quite a bit older now. Mm-hmm. And so you're a lot less likely to go out and take manual labor jobs. And so that's the job category, the cohort that immigrants typically fill when they first come into the country.
Do we see, when you look about the decline that you're speaking about, will it impact certain areas differently than others? And I would assume major cities would feel it first because of the influx of immigrants, but does that really hold true in the way you look at the nation? So
frankly, I would expect that Texas and the Houston region would be one of the most seriously impacted by this because, Harris County for the last several years, 100% of its population growth has been international immigration. There's this idea.
100%?
100%. There's this idea that people are moving here from all over the country. That was true several years ago, but those numbers have really gone down. And in Harris County itself, that's called domestic migration, by the way, people moving here from another state. For Harris County, that number's been negative for 10 years now. And it's almost exactly offset by the birth rate.
Thank you for that because I always heard, all these Californians are coming in.
New Yorkers.
And they're making the prices go way up for
come
housing.
for the 100% tariffs that are
and with Mamdani's election, I've heard the same thing. All these New Yorkers are going to move here.
All of those are sort of political narratives that really are not supported by the data. Now, we're still getting a lot of people moving here from the states in the suburbs, but not in Harris County itself. Right. So if you look at Montgomery County or Fort Bend County, those are all still have pretty positive, what we call domestic migration. But Harris County has been negative for 10 years. By the way, if you accumulate the 10 years, it's a negative 200,000 people have left Harris County going someplace else. Now, a lot of those have not gone too far. They've gone to Montgomery County or to Fort Bend County or somewhere. Yeah. But it's been stagnant. The city of Houston's population has not changed for 10 years. I mean, the city core here has been very, very stable for about a decade. I'll give you a stat that none of you or your listeners are going to believe. The population of Houston inside Loop 610 today is about the same as it was in 1960.
Oh, no, you're kidding me.
Uh-huh. And the reason for that is if you go out to the south and southeast and northeast, there used to be these big, mostly minority communities where there were just block after block of tract homes that had mom and dad and 3 or 4 kids in it, and those are not there anymore. Wow. And you replaced it with all these high rises over on the west side. But guess how many people live in each one of those apartments?
Yeah,
right.
2.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Slip on your headphones while I let everyone know we're speaking with Bill King, who's a fellow in public finance at Rice University's Baker Institute. We're talking about the shrinking immigration population. And we've got a call from Joseph from Tomball. Joseph, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Houston. It's interesting because he mentioned about love and hate about immigrants. And then we are proud Houstonians seeing this city, how it's growing day by day, building new apartments everywhere, new houses and everything, highways. But it's the immigrant people who work in those jobs. We are proud how diversity is with restaurants and everything, but it's the immigration people who work in the restaurant industry. So I don't get it why the government don't try to find a solution and give these people at least.
Well, some of the government was, Bill. What do you think about that?
So, listen, I mostly agree with what he had to say, but we just had an election where a majority of the American people said we don't want as much immigration as we've had in the past. And the polling on this, if you ask people, do you think that people here illegally should be deported, it's overwhelmingly that they should be, including every demographic group, including Latinos, by the way.
Right.
And so, but I think a lot of people don't understand how difficult it is to come here legally these days. Very, very narrow exceptions to get here legally. And so there's a lot of confusion about this issue. Both political parties love making this an issue to campaign on, and neither one of them are interested in solving the problem.
And that's what I was going to ask you, Bill. You know, when we look at what you're talking about, you know, the perception is that people want, there's too many people coming in, there's open borders, there's that perception. But the reality based on data, what it's showing, is that true?
It certainly was true during the Biden administration. I mean, they really changed the policies, and there were tremendous numbers of people coming across. Nobody knows what the number is, but the Census Bureau said for last year it was about 2.8 million people entered the United States. That's really higher than we've ever seen before. It was probably actually higher than that. There's a lot of reasons to think the Census Bureau misses that number, and that's why you've got this backlash. Now, since Trump came back into office, there's almost nobody coming across the border right now.
Well, it seems like a case of be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Yeah, and you're going to find out that when you want all of the immigrants to leave, you're going to have highways that aren't getting built, and you're going to have yards that aren't being cut, and whatever else you want to think about, it's not going to be done because not only are these people willing to do it, they do a great job at it.
Yeah, they're very hardworking people.
They are.
But there's also a criminal element that came across with the people that were, and that's what's caused the problem, and that's what's caused the backlash.
The baby in the bathwater.
And this is why we need to have a rational immigration policy. Sometime you ought to have Charles Foster on your show. He's the great immigration lawyer here. He laid out a plan for George W. Bush 20 years ago, about a 20-point plan that would have absolutely made sense, and we'd have a rational immigration system. We need to know who's coming in the country. We need to vet them. We need to control the number that come in so it's the right number based on the labor market conditions that we have. I mean, by the way, that's what most other countries do.
Right.
You know?
And Bill, we're going to have you come back and discuss talking to us about solutions, because I think that is the key here, that everybody needs to come together and find a solution. Bill King is a fellow in public finance at Rice University's Baker Institute. Bill, thank you for joining us again today on Hello Houston.
Happy to do.
Coming up, we're going to talk with the world-famous trumpet player Wynton Marsalis. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
At 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
Most of us do most of our shopping online these days, but you may have noticed the revival of shopping catalogs.
There still remains a level of excitement in getting your mail every day, no matter what you're getting. They're making the mail entertaining.
I guess you can't beat holding that glossy paper in your hands, huh? The story next time on Marketplace.
You can hear Marketplace tonight. It's on at 6:30.
Houston Matters wants to hear from you about story or guest ideas for future programs, or pet care or gardening questions you'd like us to tackle when those subjects come up each month on the show. Or maybe you have suggestions for how we can improve the program and provide a better public service. Reach out anytime at talk@houstonmatters.org. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us for the next Houston Matters, weekday mornings at 9 here on News 88.7.
Support comes from Good Reason Houston, a new video spotlighting how Houston schools are putting more students on a path to a living wage, shows the powerful connection between student success and our city's economic future. Watch now at goodreasonhouston.org.
Support comes from the Grand 1894 Opera House, presenting Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis on Friday, November 14th at 8 p.m., featuring the music of Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, and more. thegrand.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To share your thoughts on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
This weekend, the world-renowned Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra will be bringing its signature sound to the Houston area, both in Galveston and to the Houston Hobby Center, led by legendary trumpeter Wynton Marsalis. The concert will feature timeless classics alongside new works that celebrate both the rich heritage and the boundless innovation of jazz. To tell us more about these upcoming performances, we're joined by the one and only Wynton Marsalis, managing and artistic director of Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Welcome to the program, sir.
All right. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Truly a pleasure. If folks would like to join the conversation, you can call or text us at 713-440-8870.
I'll tell you what, we get a lot of people on this show. It's rare we get a legend like you.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I tell you, what do you think has been your enduring musical abilities there? I know you were born that way and took a trumpet at 12 years old, but what is it that's kept you on top for so long?
Your secret sauce.
Yeah, what's the secret sauce, Whitney?
I just think I have the honor of playing with unbelievable musicians. So I've been lucky to be surrounded with the greatest musicians in the world. And we always, when people come to see us play, we're always playing. Like, we're about playing music.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the connection between the human being and the object, in your case, that you hold in your hand that comes alive with music, and why everyone holding that same machine can't make the same sound.
You know, that's a good question, interesting question. But it's why we all have different sounds when we talk. We have the sound of our voice, which is more or less natural. We can work on it, but it's not going to change that much. But we also have what we are able to say, what we know, and what we want to say, and why we're saying it. So music has those same things. Like if you listen to someone like Louis Armstrong play, you almost don't think it's a trumpet or an instrument at all. He gets such a human sound, and it's certainly what we all strive to do. All jazz musicians want to sound as human and as earthy as possible.
I like that you have some new works coming along. Where do you think jazz stands in today's music world?
You know, I think it's going to always be where it is because it's an art form, and it goes where our democracy goes. So we're struggling right now. So the music is a bit of a struggle, but with the arts, you have to want your kids to be educated in it, and it has to represent a way of life that you want to see carry on. Mm-hmm. But, you know, these art forms have a tendency, if they're documented well enough, to stick around for centuries. Like Bach's music was not played for 150 years. And then Mendelssohn gave one concert 100 years. Mendelssohn gave a concert 100 years after Bach died, not 150. And everybody discovered his music again. So jazz is well documented, and our greatest artists will stand with any of the great people like Art Tatum and Charlie Parker, Duke Ellington. They're gonna continue to be pertinent as long as people listen to music.
You talk about classical, you talk about jazz. If I'm not mistaken, you're the only musician to have won a Grammy Award in both jazz and classical in the same year. What do you see as the connection between when we think of jazz and we think of classical? Where do they really meet?
Well, the forms are the harmonic system is the same, the 12 keys. The instruments, trumpet is in classical music, it's also in jazz. The concept of development, like you start with one theme and then you go from one thing to the next. It's like Romance languages. The English lays out a certain way. So it's much easier for us to learn pieces in classical music than it would be for us to learn some pieces in Eastern music or some pieces in African music, because the system and the way of thinking is very different.
We know horns. I was going to say trumpet, especially, but you think of trumpets and bugles. They call to duty. Yes. They start the race. They get you. I mean, they really get you jazzed up.
No pun intended.
Right. Is that where you found? Is that where you found your love of the trumpet?
Yeah, I had a trumpet because my father at that time was playing in the band of the great trumpeter Al Hurt. And at 6 years old, I got a trumpet from him as a gift. So at that time, if you got an instrument, that's what you were going to play. But we are a herald instrument. I always tease the saxophone players, and I say that the trumpet is in the Bible plenty of times. Do we see a saxophone in there anywhere?
Nope.
Mr. Rosales, jazz is unique because of its emphasis on improvisation. When you are with your other musicians, how do you all come together to kind of have that unique balance between improvising and still collaborating and making it sound like jazz?
Well, jazz, that's also an excellent question. Jazz is about improvisation in the context of a form. Mm-hmm. It's like with our Constitution, democracy can work if you want to follow the Constitution, or if you want to work on it. However, if you want to get around it and you don't want to deal with it, you don't have to deal with it. You'll figure out ways to subvert the practice of democracy. Jazz is that same way. Now, we subvert it by playing too long solos, being unbalanced in the rhythm section, drummers playing too loud, bass players turning up amps, horn players having monitors that mainly feature themselves playing, on and on and on. We have ways to subvert playing, but we have governors. We have the freedom of improvisation, but the concept of swing is a concept of balance and of sharing space. And swing is what makes you not play too long, makes you listen to other people's playing, makes you try to find a way to nurture the common space as much as you nurture your own.
Beautiful.
Talk to me a little bit about playing with the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, and where I assume you have all found to make this dance work.
Man, they're so great. I mean, what can I say? We now have a lot of new compositions. We have our younger generation coming in. We were founded with Duke Ellington's surviving members and members of my septet when we were in our 20s and 30s, and they were in their 60s and 70s. And I can't say enough about the quality of playing, the quality of musicianship, and they all are leaders. As a matter of fact, Jazz Houston is led by our trombonist, Vincent Gardner. He's a great educator, great singer. And also the band, everywhere we go, people talk about how fantastic they are as people. So it's been really a blessing for me in my adult life to have 30-something years of playing with musicians of this unbelievably high quality of playing and of character.
So when you get to do all of this, how hard is it then to do the office management work you have to do that's required to also run all of this?
It's difficult because it's the cultures are different. And as I've gotten older, the culture has changed a lot, office culture. And there are challenges. With musicians, we used to practicing forever. And a lot of us are the kids of jazz musicians. So we grew up seeing our parents really struggle and just and play for 3 and 4 people. But I think everybody, when you get in office culture, everyone wants what we want, which is clear guidelines, clear scores, a clear accounting, recognition when you do something, a sense of where you're going, a sense of purpose. I have something I've written called the 12 ways of business that are related to jazz, to show exactly how jazz can be used to help you improve your business. And it's it's challenging, but it's still the same basic principles.
But going back to performing, I mean, this is something like you said, you grew up with it. It's in your DNA, your family, your parents. How do you stay fresh every night? Where do you find that inspiration, year after year at such a high level?
I was in a club with my father. I grew up in clubs from the time I was literally born. 1, 2, 3 years old, I was in places. I was always the only kid in places. And of my father's kids, I was the one who always went with him. One night we were in a club and it was like 2:30 in the morning, and I was the only person in the club except another patron who was extremely drunk and sleeping. So I went to the piano and I told my father, "Man, let's go. It's 2:15. Let's just," because he closed the club up. I said, "Man, let's go." And he said, he didn't. My father was not big on using profanity, talking to you, or being aggressive. He's not an aggressive man. He's a very spiritual kind of man. And he told me, sit your behind down, but he didn't use the word behind, which was unusual. He said, sit your behind down and listen to the music for a change. You know, for all the years I've been in the club, I never actually listened to it. So I would remember just sitting in the club. I was about 11 then, and looking around and said to myself, what makes somebody want to play this good for no one? Mm. And at 2:30, he stopped, and we drove. It took us 35 or 40 minutes of driving to get home from the club. Was in New Orleans. We lived in Kenner. But that was a transformative moment in my life, and I go back to that all the time. Sometimes I play really big concerts. I played for elementary schools, and I always just remember how he played that night. And many of us have those experiences, seeing our parents struggle with the art form, because most of the orchestra members' parents really played actual jazz. And it's an honor for us to play. So I feel like every night. Last night we were playing. We were like, we're up here to play. Let's go.
Wynton Marsalis is the managing and artistic director of the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Mr. Marsalis, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking with y'all.
This weekend, you will be able to enjoy the world-renowned Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra right here in the Houston area on Friday night in Galveston at the Grand Galveston at the Grand 1894 Opera House, and on Sunday night in downtown Houston at the Hobby Center. Coming up, we're going to continue diving into today's top stories. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from the Grand 1894 Opera House, presenting Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis on Friday, November 14th at 8 p.m., featuring the music of Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, and more. thegrand.com.
For this afternoon, lots of sunshine. Will only warm up to around 59. And a low tonight near 40, currently 56. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12:01.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. The Trump administration is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to block a lower court ruling requiring full SNAP benefits be paid for November. NPR's Tovia Smith reports a hearing is set for this afternoon.
The Trump administration's bid for help from the Supreme Court comes after a federal appeals court last night refused a similar request. At issue is an order from a federal judge in Rhode Island requiring payment of full SNAP benefits instead of the 65% the administration wants to pay. Meantime, a group of states who already paid some full benefits got a federal judge in Boston to temporarily stop the Trump administration from penalizing them. Administration officials say those states may have to pay the government back for any payments over 65%, and they could lose some federal funding. The states insist they were in compliance with administrative guidance and court orders when making those payments. Tovia Smith, NPR News, Boston.
Hamas has handed over the body of an Israeli soldier that had been held in Gaza since 2014. NPR's Lauren Frere reports the move may indicate progress toward Phase 2 of a U.S.-brokered ceasefire between Israel and the militant group.
Phase 1 was halting violence, exchanging bodies, and boosting humanitarian aid to Gaza. Phase 2 is disarming Hamas, deploying international troops, and governing post-war. Hamas's handover of the remains of Hadar Goldin, an Israeli soldier killed in a previous Gaza war, could impact Phase 2 negotiations over some 200 Hamas fighters. They're believed to be holed up in Rafah in southern Gaza. Israel's been demanding they surrender or be killed. The U.S. floated the idea of freeing them if they agree to disarm and in exchange for Goldin's body. As for an international security force, Turkey has been involved in talks, but an Israeli government spokesperson says there will be no Turkish boots on the ground. Lauren Fryer, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The annual United Nations climate meeting, also known as COP30, has officially kicked off in Brazil. NPR's Rebecca Hersher reports one goal of the meeting is to accelerate progress on climate change.
In recent years, wind and solar power has expanded dramatically. It's now the cheapest source of electricity in most of the world, and that's helping to slow the rate of global warming. But it's not enough to avoid catastrophic amounts of warming in the coming decades, says United Nations climate chief Simon Steele.
We must move much, much faster on both reductions of emissions and strengthening resilience.
Delegates from more than 190 nations are participating in this year's meeting. The United States is not among them. Rebecca Hersher, NPR News.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Governor Greg Abbott announced Sunday that he's seeking a fourth term as governor of Texas. The Republican made the announcement in Houston, where he won his first election for public office in the early 90s to become a state trial judge. The Texas Newsroom's Blaise Gainey has more.
Abbott's announcement wasn't surprising. The three-time governor enters the race as the clear front-runner, both due to being an incumbent and having more than $80 million in his campaign coffers. On Sunday, Abbott outlined a plan he says will give Texans more control over their property taxes, a problem he's been trying to address for years.
Those local property taxes are being hiked by your local governments incessantly. It's time that we drive a stake through the heart of the ability of local property tax hikes in the future.
Currently, there are two other candidates vying for the Republican nomination, but it's widely expected Abbott will ultimately end up on the ballot next November, facing off against the state's Democratic candidate for governor. I'm Blaise Gainey in Austin.
A road connecting Houston to its southwest suburbs is lined with houses of worship representing several different faiths. The stretch of Sinot Road was named Union Corridor this past summer for its religious diversity. Nat Patel is a member of one of the Hindu temples located along the corridor.
You're free to worship the way you want to worship, and we worship the way we want to worship, and we respect each other.
There are 8 places of worship located in Union Corridor, which is less than a mile long. You can hear more about it on News 88.7 In Depth coming up at 3:40. Authorities in Polk County are telling some residents who live around an area close to Carter Lake Dam to continue staying away from their homes after concerns about the dam potentially failing. Residents were given a voluntary evacuation notice on Saturday when authorities went door to door to explain the situation. Multiple outlets report that concerns began arising after an 8-inch hole was reported in an embankment surrounding Carter Lake. Polk County authorities say it could be at least another couple of days before telling residents it's safe to return. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to the second hour of Hello Houston. You know, we just started so quickly at that top of the hour.
Yeah.
How was everybody's weekend?
It was good. I'll tell you, most people will know, on Friday I was in Round Top
Film
the Film Festival. But we had such a busy weekend in Houston that as soon as we were done with our show, I hopped in my car and left Round Top. So I missed all their big parties and the screenings and everything that came after what we did on our show. But I came back to town for Tutz's Gala. And they had Jeremy Jordan there, who was on our show. And the full interview of Jeremy Jordan will be dropping this week on our YouTube channel. He's just amazing on stage. It's like that next generation of Broadway legends that are being born now. Jeremy Jordan's going to fall into that category, I really think.
Well, you know, we talked about the communities and schools, and they were having their big fundraiser. And I kept saying, I'm going to go to lunch at the pit room. I'm going to go to lunch. Well, we did.
How was
waited,
it?
Well, it was a 30-minute wait in line. They're so popular.
Man.
It's like going to Killen's on a Sunday afternoon. The barbecue was delicious, and all the money that I don't know how much it was, but all the money for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 100% went to communities and schools. So Kevin and I did that for lunch, and then we went to a birthday party for artist Michael Collins, who is showing at a gallery on Westheimer. And the party, it was his 70th, and the party was in the gallery, and it was catered and fun, and saw old friends that we haven't seen in a while. So we had a really nice time. We ought to have Michael on the show. You know, he's a professor at so many universities, and he's now an emeritus professor, I believe, University of Houston.
Oh, we should definitely have him on.
He's a great artist.
Yeah. You know, on Saturday, Evelyn, my daughter, got to participate at the Rice University football game.
Really?
And she performed with the Rice University cheerleaders.
Oh,
and
I thought you meant she played football.
Oh, no.
Because I know her. She could have taken down a few.
No. It was very
cheerlead?
fun. She got to cheerlead with the Rice University cheerleaders and the Rice Owls, and it was such a fun experience.
How cool.
And it was so well organized. Kudos to Rice University for putting that on, and their dance team and their cheerleaders, because it was a group of little girls from all different schools, and they learned to dance, and they went out on the field, and it was just a really cool experience, and it was a beautiful day on Saturday.
How long did that carry her, the excitement of having done it?
Oh, my gosh. Well, we get in the car because I want to do that every day. I was like, well, let's get, But it was absolutely wonderful. And these young women, were just so smart and as beautiful and as, sparkly as they were. I started asking them, what are y'all majoring in? And they were like, I'm, chemistry and engineering. And I was like, wow,
that's
the
why
next
that's why they're not getting
generation.
married and having babies.
Well, yeah, but
having careers.
It is, yes, absolutely. And it was a phenomenal experience.
Okay, correction. Michael was honored Professor Emeritus from Houston Christian University.
Yes.
That used to be Houston Baptist, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Now Houston Christian. Anyway, so that's just to correct that.
Saturday night, I got to see A Beautiful Noise. And I absolutely loved the show. I'm not a huge. It's not that I'm not a Neil Diamond fan.
No, what?
I just never. It wasn't in my playlist. But every time
Sure.
I've heard his music, I enjoyed it. I knew his songs.
Coming to America.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful show, and they have a whole bunch of the lights that come down. They're like all those vintage lamps that make up a lot of the set. And Walt was there with me, and he was like, "Oh my God, I love the lamps." And he asked the stage manager after the show what those lamps. She had just taken one out of the show, and she said that he could have it.
Oh, that's so
because they
cool.
were replacing it with a new lamp. But he had to give a gift to Broadway Cares.
This is how you get a bunch of junk. I mean, a bunch of stuff when you're older that you're like, what am I going to do with all this stuff?
Then I just have to say quickly, last night I decided, I know this isn't obsessions right now, but I've been kind of caught up into like copycat recipes and stuff. Well, I learned how, theoretically, to make the ground beef they have at Taco Bell so that you can make your own Taco Bell creations at home.
You can just buy the Taco Bell seasoning.
And
you can just go to Taco Bell.
You can just go to Taco Bell. But the trick to the beef at home, you boil it.
You boil
You don't
the beef.
brown it. And so you
I don't know how I
boil
feel
it,
about that.
pound to a cup of water. Once it's up to a boil for 5 minutes, and then you strain it. And then the meat has a much softer, silky texture. And that's what I don't know that they do it exactly like that, but at home you can do that. And it worked.
Pro tip from Ernie.
There you go. All right.
Yes.
We took a poll earlier today about the immigrant community where you live. Why don't I actually read the real question? Yeah. Have you noticed a change in the immigrant community where you live? And our voters said 40% said no change, 30% said yes, fewer immigrants, 20% said yes, more immigrants, and 10% were not sure. That's how our poll turned out. If you want to play in the polls, go over to our YouTube channel. In the chat group, we often post polls about what we're talking about, and we'd love to know what you think.
All right.
That's right. Coming up on Hello Houston, we're going to talk with Daniel Cohen, professor of civil environmental engineering at Rice University, about the climate summit in Brazil. And interesting, the United States' lack of participation. They decided not to participate in the event. But first, we're going to jump into the headlines.
Let's jump.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a lawsuit against the Galveston Independent School District on Friday for its refusal to display the Ten Commandments inside of school classrooms as required by a new state law that's being challenged in federal court. Governor Greg Abbott earlier this summer signed Senate Bill 10 into law, requiring every public school classroom in the state to include a poster with the 10 Commandments. Some Houston area school districts' elected boards of trustees have taken up votes to initiate the new requirements. Following a civil rights lawsuit this year challenging the law, a federal judge in August temporarily blocked 11 Texas school districts from displaying the biblical posters in classrooms, finding the law likely violates the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. A federal appeals court is set to hear arguments in the dispute next year. The Attorney General's litigation targeting the Small Island School District comes weeks after an October 22nd meeting in which the Galveston ISD Board of Trustees voted to delay the posting while the question is held up in court. Gosh, that was long. But what do you think of Paxton suing Galveston ISD? Is he upholding the law or filing a worthless lawsuit? Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston, 713-440-8870.
Spending our Texas money on this, eh? You know, if you Google how many churches display the 10 Commandments prominently, the answer is almost none.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the Bible if you want to read it.
It's there.
Maybe in a Sunday school class, but they don't feel the need to display it everywhere. Well, I mean, they're a little outdated, to be honest. I mean, honor thy father and mother. Not if they've abused you. Not if that's where you're coming from. Obviously, thou shalt not kill or steal or bear false witness. No one likes a liar. But keep the Sabbath holy. Do not take the Lord God's name in vain. It's just thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, ask the politicians about that. And then two of them are about coveting. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Well, that's a little sexist for one thing. Why are we going to change it to spouse now? And then the 10th is thou shalt not covet everything else your neighbor has. So all of this coveting, because coveting too much leads to stealing and killing. So that makes sense. But the 10 Commandments, about 3 of them apply now. And so I think that I've always said, if you put the golden rule up there, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is from almost all liturgy, that along with don't bring guns to school is all you need up there.
I think when I look at this and I think about the fact that we're even having a conversation around this is pretty ridiculous given the fact that we have Texans that are hurting, that we understand currently when we're looking at supplemental nutrition assistance programs, we're looking at SNAP, we're looking at health care. There are some real issues that need to be addressed before we need to be looking at these type of things. But again, sorry, go ahead, Ernie.
I was just going to say I'm jumping in and reading the actual text of the law. And it says, if you don't have it, one can be donated to you. It can be donations can be made to get this copy up. And the last section of it says, which is where this goes, is that notwithstanding any other law, a public elementary or secondary school is not exempt from this section. So they do have to have it in every classroom.
But it is on
according
appeal.
to the law.
I think Galveston ISD is smart to wait until there's a court decision, because look at it this way. You put all over the school the 10 Commandments, and then you rip it down? What does that tell you, a third grader? Right. Well, it was a good idea for December until April, but you know what? We decided to take this off, and you're going to look at it anymore. I mean, it's just wait until there is actually a decision made, and then do what the law requires you to do. We have calls, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just really quick before you get to the call, I just want to say that the 10 Commandments posted cannot have anything else verbiage on the poster or the framed presentation except the description of the 10 Commandments that's in this law. So you can't have the 10 Commandments and then put something else and another creed, something else. You cannot. It must be solely just the verbiage here in this bill, which is just the 10 Commandments as they appear outside of the state capitol.
713-440-8870. You're listening to Hello Houston. You can join the conversation by giving us a call or sending us a text. Mike from West Houston is on the line. Mike, welcome to Hello Houston. What are your thoughts or comments on this?
Thank you for putting me on the line, dear lady. 10 Commandments in schools or anywhere in the state public buildings. Thou shalt not kill in a state with the death penalty. How does that sound for starters?
Okay, so we'll put one commandment on.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, what was the comment?
Well, you'll put the one commandment. Thou shalt not kill.
Isn't that enough?
Yeah.
Thou shalt not kill. That's it. Well, we have death penalty in Houston. In fact, in Texas, we're champions in the whole country in this. So there you go. You're already violating, the state, are already violating what you claim that you're going to be espousing in one of the most critical commandments.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Let's not even get
Thou
into
shalt
the
not kill
adultery.
unless you killed first, then we're going to kill you.
Right.
That's what you're saying. You're absolutely right.
Nope. It doesn't say anything about you kill first or whatever. It says thou shalt not kill. That's it.
Yeah. Well, Mike, you have a very valid point. Thank you for your
Thank
comment.
you for giving us a call, Mike.
I appreciate it.
Let's go to Doug from the Woodlands. Doug, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
I think that Galveston is being prudent. There was already a trial in Louisiana on a virtually identical law in which they held it was unconstitutional. They had a trial, Judge Beery in Texas. I think it was in San Antonio, but I'm not sure. He held the same thing. Those two cases have been consolidated, or they're being heard at the same time by the Fifth Circuit. I think it's pretty clear that this is the establishment of a religion. And I think even the Fifth Circuit, which is the most conservative in the nation, is going to strike it down. So I think that Galveston is being prudent in doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Good points. Thank you. I'm curious, guys, folks, I don't know. What
Ladies
do you think,
and gentlemen.
ladies and gentlemen, trying to figure out what to call you.
Folks,
Cohorts.
people, humans.
If the wording was the Ten Commandments can be allowed in classrooms as opposed to required in classrooms, how do you think it would play out?
Well, as long as you're going to allow every religion to participate in that, then I think that perhaps, I don't know, as a parent, you'd want to have some kind of say into what your children are going to be looking at on the walls of their public classroom. If it is at all controversial or against what your belief is.
Yeah.
You may be teaching them atheism, and you don't want the Ten Commandments being seen every day by your fifth grader.
713-440-8870. Let's find out what Doug from the Woodlands has to say. Doug, what's on your mind?
I believe we already spoke to Doug. We're going to go to Kirby from Galveston. Kirby, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. I just wanted to call in and say, whether anyone is saying it outright or not, we know this is unconstitutional. This country is not a theocracy. And furthermore, if these so-called Christians that are in our legislative bodies in Texas want people to convert to Christianity and become Christians, then they should act like it. They should be feeding these people that are on WIC. They should be trying to help these people that are not getting SNAP benefits. That's the Christ-like thing to do. Not trying to shove your religion down people's throats in public institutions when we know, and my question is, do these people want a theocracy? Do they not care about other religious beliefs in this country? Or do they are they so ignorant of the Constitution that they think this would be okay? One last comment. I bet Ken Paxton couldn't even recite the Ten Commandments if his life depended on it. And that's all I got.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good, Kirby. Thank you for the comments.
Kirby.
That's my Galveston talking to us right there, by the way.
Yeah.
Galvestonians are very middle-of-the-road people.
Yeah.
I mean, they believe that everyone has a right to equality, and the Kempner family sort of started that back in the day when there was anti-Semitism across the country. They wouldn't allow it. And when you're on an island, it's kind of like everybody be nice to each other because we're on an island.
Well, it just, again, it goes back to the fact that we're looking at the situation that we're in right now in regards to just in general. People are looking at healthcare premiums skyrocketing.
Right.
People are looking at labor shortages. We're looking at, people are working for free during these times. And we just want our kids to go to school, learn math, a couple things, keep it common sense. This is not common sense.
Do you think Paxton is just grandstanding because he's running for Senate?
100%.
Yeah.
This is all political positioning. This is all about exactly that. Again, 713-440-8870. You're listening to Hello Houston. Mark is on the line from the East End. Mark, welcome to Hello Houston.
That's Galveston, I think. Are you from Galveston, Mark?
No, East End.
East End.
Oh, the East.
Downtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have the East End in Galveston, too.
Anyway,
sorry.
Mark, what's on your mind?
Yeah, hey, you guys are great, by the way. I listen to you daily, and I've called in before. I think it's a choice that Ken Paxton is filing this lawsuit. First of all, it's definitely against the Constitution of the United States. Secondly, his wife has sued him for divorce for adultery. and yet he is insisting on putting up these 10 commandments that he doesn't even follow himself. So,
Mark, yep, thank you for that comment. It does make me wonder, though, had he been in a classroom growing up where the 10 Commandments were prominently displayed, maybe he wouldn't have found himself
maybe he'd know
in that
them.
position.
Well, it was James Tallarico who sat there on the floor and read the 10 Commandments and said, "How many of you have not lied? Have you all?
But I guess
have you all followed these commandments?"
Listen, as somebody who is, a Christian, I think that it has the opposite effect, and this is something that Representative James Tallarico has said, that is not essentially what Christianity is supposed to be about. Is posing and pushing your religion on others. It's about respect.
I think also the difference when we make the argument about how many of you haven't done these or have done these or broken these laws, it's not about whether you have or not. It's about, are you aware that this law given from the lawgiver to the people is understood and known? Then you make your own decisions.
Well, you can make an argument that, yes, I've committed adultery. That's why these commandments should be out there, so the kids growing up don't do the same thing I did.
Right.
So you can make that argument if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Earl Grey T-Cat says they don't even belong in classrooms. The only classrooms the 10 Commandments should be in is in a Sunday school.
And you know what? Texans are about to get $10,000 in vouchers. You can probably send your children to private school, which, from what I understand, there are multiple private schools that say that they don't put that up in their schools.
So Noah Espinoza says, I want all the religious beliefs on the wall. Let me reread that. I want all the religious beliefs on the wall so that the children can be educated, and when the spiritual call tugs on you, you get to decide your path.
Again, 713-440-8870. Let's go to Sarah from Deer Park. Sarah, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to say that I think it's really unfortunate that Texas has become such a cliche for conservative beliefs when we have, almost 50% Democratic leaning people in this state. I don't think that the 10 Commandments that are tenets of one specific religion should be on the classroom walls, because I think there's a lot of patriarchal thoughts and beliefs in religion circulating these days and being pushed by the government, especially Christian conservatism. And we don't need anything that's propagating subjugation of women and lack of equality, lack of inclusion. And it's just unfortunate because this is a multicultural and religious country, and we shouldn't have the tenets of one specific religion on the classroom walls.
Sarah, thank you for that. Very well put. I guess that also goes into the idea, too, just to be clear, when we talk about this subject, we're not really talking about the validity of the 10 Commandments or whether or not they should be taught in your homes or your churches. The question is, in the public space of a public school where all different faiths and upbringings come together, should one be valued over other ideals of different religions? Should religion at all be represented in that manner? You can teach the 10 Commandments if you're doing a history of religion class and talk about how the Jewish people followed this that then carry down to the Christian, but then also what happens in Buddhist and Hindu and all. There's where it belongs, I believe.
We don't even have to get that nuanced. I mean, the golden rule: treat others the way you want to to be treated.
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
A lot of these values and things are taught. Our teachers show every single day students how to share. Keep your hands to yourself. That's someone's personal space. You don't just take something from somebody's backpack or somebody's desk. I mean, these things are being taught essentially without necessarily putting a religion to it. And also, as a parent with children in public school, I would like to teach my child what we believe in our own home.
The Code of Hammurabi, an eye for an eye. That should be on.
And don't forget, Cain killed Abel, and so we needed to say, "Thou shalt not kill." Do you really have to tell people that now? Do you have to tell your children, "Thou shalt not steal"? Don't you just
laws and rules?
Well, we have a way of bringing people up now that they didn't have back when Moses was in charge.
Yeah.
It's a different. Anyway, we have more calls. Let's go to Erastus from Katy.
Yes, let's go to Erastus.
Hi, Erastus. Welcome to Hello Houston.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Good,
Thanks for
sir.
taking my call. Good. No, I really don't think it should be in the classroom because, like you said, we are a multinational and religion group of people in Texas here. So I think just putting up the 10 Commandments, it's not fair to the other religion. And besides, once you put it up there and if people are not following, even representative or politicians not following the rules of the Ten Commandments, it watered down the Ten Commandments, and I mean, how do you expect kids in the class to follow that rules when representative and leadership are not even following that rules, especially when it comes to "thou shalt not lie"? We see. This is nothing new. We see politicians lying all the time. How do you expect those kids to follow that rules when you're not even following the rules?
Well, even a headline can be a lie. There's all kinds of clickbait out there and all kinds of slanted headlines that are lies.
And we did receive a YouTube comment from Sean Radigan that says we shouldn't force schools to include religion. Some families delegate so much child rearing to schools. Again, you're putting more on teachers. And let's head to the phone lines. We have a call from Edgar from Katy. Edgar, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hey, great. My comment is I think we've all forgotten the concept of separation of church and state. These are words of Thomas Jefferson. I think it's in the Constitution. You guys can verify that, but the rest of it's kind of moot. We're talking about running government. The church shouldn't be a part of any of these decisions. That's the concept.
Well, you're absolutely right.
And again, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston. We've been discussing the 10 Commandments in schools. Galveston ISD is pushing back on Governor Abbott.
We'll see how that goes.
We're going to continue to monitor this coverage as we continue. And coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Daniel Cohen, a professor of civil and environmental engineering at Rice University, about the climate summit that's happening in Brazil and the United States' lack of participation in the event.
Thou shalt not pollute.
This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Michael Schaefer. My partner Ellen and I have been proud supporters of public radio and TV for decades.
We really would be lost without our daily fix of unbiased national and local news, cultural programming, and great entertainment.
But with recent federal defunding, stations like Houston Public Media face real challenges.
Now's the time to step up.
Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Thank you.
You might have heard the term Orwellian in recent months to describe the modern political era. But who exactly was George Orwell? It's a question filmmaker Raoul Peck tackles in his new documentary, Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5. Through Orwell's own words and diary entries, the film explores authoritarian power in the past and the present. That's next time on 1A.
You can listen to 1A. It's coming up today at 2 o'clock.
Support comes from downtown Houston, a growing urban district and home to performing arts, Houston Rockets and Houston Astros, and global headquarters with over 1 million square feet of office leases signed this year. Details at downtownhouston.org.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, join country music performer Trace Adkins for a Veterans Day celebration with the U.S. Army Field Band, Angel Blue and Kurt Elling. It's Salute to Service 2025. Tonight at 8 on TV8.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Now back to Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
World leaders are in Brazil this week for the United Nations Annual Climate Summit taking place right in the heart of the Amazon. The setting highlights what's at stake, protecting the world's largest rainforest and tackling the global climate crisis. But this year, some key players are missing. For instance, the United States, China, and India, the 3 top polluters of the world, are skipping the leaders' meeting. Their absence is raising doubts about whether real progress can even be made on cutting emissions and meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement. And joining us to talk about this climate summit is Daniel Cohen, professor of civil and environmental engineering at Rice University. Daniel, thank you for being with us. What's your reaction to the United States, India, and China not even showing up?
Well, it's 3 very different cases. The United States is the first country ever to leave the entire framework of this summit and not to send a delegation at all. The presidents of China and India won't be there, but they'll have large delegations there having a very influential role in these summits. So very much a different story of the United States has left the game, that 197 countries agreed to participate in this, and the other countries are there not with their top leaders, like have been going to some of these annual summits, but will still have a much larger presence.
But, Daniel, given that our current U.S. Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, has been very outspoken about his somewhat anti-approval of climate change. He's even, I believe, called some of these organizations, or the COP30 Environmental Summit, I think he called it a hoax of people not necessarily wanting the best for people's lives. Are we surprised that the United States has taken such a hard stance on this situation?
Yeah, I think we knew from the beginning of this administration that it was going to be an administration that would be opposed to taking action on climate change, that has been very much in support of fossil fuels and has resisted what it calls the Green New Scam. But I think we've seen things happen just within the past couple of weeks, happened at a level that hadn't been seen before. The biggest international meeting that happened just before the climate summit of this week was a meeting of the International Maritime Organization, where they were setting global rules on shipping. And in that case, the United States strong-armed the others there into opposing a rule that it looked like was about to go into place to lower emissions from shipping. And the United States and Saudi Arabia led that to be completely overturned and postponed. So I think now we have a different situation at the Brazil talks, where the United States won't even be in the room. And so things might unfold differently without the U.S. role there.
And that kind of leads into exactly the question I was going to ask you. We always look at it as the U.S. not participating harms the rest of the situation. But how much does the U.S. end up being harmed if they are not in the room where these decisions are being made?
Yeah, we're very much the outlier, very much being left behind while the energy transition is proceeding in other parts of the world. The fastest additions of electricity globally are coming from wind, solar, and batteries. The other parts of the world are moving more quickly to electric vehicles and electrifying parts of the economy. And the United States is pushing for larger and larger sales of natural gas, oil, and coal around the world. And so these climate talks are happening with the United States very much on the sidelines and pushing a very different agenda than many other countries are trying to follow.
So, I guess from a realistic point, though, what does it really mean to the four of us that are sitting here talking?
Well, I think a lot of this means how big of a role will the United States have as these transitions are happening. We've fallen behind the pace in many ways. We had a previous administration that was trying to help the United States catch up. And now, rather than the way the United States has acted in some of these forums, now we've left the scene. So these technologies are still developing. Even in the United States, most of the new electricity being added, for example, is coming from wind, solar, and batteries. So we aren't completely being left behind of this transition, but we're no longer at the table where major decisions are being made.
This may seem a bit obvious, but talk about the significance of them doing this where they are doing it, right there by the world's largest rainforest.
Right. I think that's bringing a lot of attention to two factors, one being the rainforests and the essential need to have our forests and ecosystems be drawing down some of the carbon dioxide that we're putting in the atmosphere. The other key factor is that this is one of the largest developing economies in the world. And much of the growth in energy demand, much of the growth in emissions is expected to come from these large developing countries. And so it's very pivotal and sends a big message to have Brazil play this large role in hosting the summit.
Let me ask you this. These kind of summits have been going on for a while, and you said that China and India are both going to have a presence there. Have we seen any real change in China or India after all these years of climate summits? Have they really pared back on coal use and burning of fossil fuels, or do they just show up and sort of talk about it?
We've seen enormous changes. We've seen the pledges, for example, China, when I visited there last year, any forum that you go to makes repeat mention of what they call the dual carbon priority, that they've committed to peaking their emissions by 2030. In fact, many people think that might happen this year, and getting to carbon neutrality by 2060. India has recently pledged that it will be carbon neutral by 2060. And in both cases, you still have what until at least recently was growing demand for fossil fuels, but you're seeing incredibly rapid rollout of renewables, incredibly rapid rollout in China, at least, of electric vehicles and other electrification. And you see the vast majority of the world's electric vehicles, of batteries, of wind and solar being both built and installed in China.
So, and some of those vehicles, very quickly. Some of those vehicles I've read about out of China, and they won't even let us have an opportunity to own them in America.
Right. President Biden put in 100% tariff on the electric vehicles, so we can't buy them. Step into BYD's headquarters in Shenzhen, see cars that are selling for $9,000. I probably would have preferred to step up to the $14,000 car, but fully electric 200 to 300 mile range electric cars that are being sold at prices that you can't get any new car in the United States.
President Trump created the National Energy Dominance Council, and I remember he wanted this to move quickly to drive up already record high U.S. energy production, particularly in fossil fuels. Daniel, can you talk to us a little bit about that and where we are at and how that has come along?
We're seeing United States oil and natural gas production at record highs. In fact, producing more oil and natural gas than any country ever has. We are very much seeing that trend towards the United States being the largest producer and largest supplier of oil and natural gas in the world.
When you talk about China a moment ago, and I think we spend so much time looking at these mega power countries from the narrative that's put out in the news, and I'm curious, when you say they've made these changes, are these governments making these changes because it makes economic sense to do it, or are they doing it from the altruistic point of view that, we need better global health? What's really spurring these nations to make these changes?
I think in China, they have a few drivers of this. First, until recently, they had the worst air pollution in the world. Beijing was known for the airpocalypse, when pollution levels got to 20 times WHO suggested levels for it, really atrocious levels of air pollution that they needed to address. And now climate change has followed air pollution as a national priority there. I think a big priority is they're in a very different position than the United States. As the largest oil and gas producer in the world, they're the biggest importer of oil. And so they've been trying to reduce their dependence of the saying that their president has is they want the rice energy bowl to be in their own hands, not depending on oil traveling through the Strait of Malacca, where they have a lot of vulnerability to getting those imports that their economy needs. So trying to reduce their demand for oil and natural gas. And then you have a big initiative there, what they call the Made in China initiative, where they're trying to manufacture as much as they can domestically, have this be an area where they have manufacturing leadership. And through that, we now see that 90% of much of the solar technologies and battery technologies are being produced in China. The majority of wind turbines, the majority of electric cars being produced and installed there as well.
So if you flip that on to the U.S., what's the motivator for us to be at that table? Is it economic or is it better environment?
I think you're always better off being at the table. This is the table where 197 signatories of this treaty are all going to figure out what the next steps are going to be. They meet every year to figure out next steps in moving forward from what actually began in Brazil. What began as the first Earth Summit that happened in Rio back in 1992. And this is the 30th follow-up meeting from that. And in my view, you're always better off being at the table rather than outside of the room where important decisions are being made.
Does the U.S. need an apocalypse too? Do we need something that says that's a wake-up call at all levels than just the idea that America first, we've got power, we're going to use the power we have?
I don't know what's going to drive a big change here. We're fortunate that our air quality needs a lot of improvement, but it still has gotten much better over the past several decades. Our water quality has continued improving. Whether that wake-up call will come from a major hurricane or some other sort of severe drought, wildfires, other extreme events, we keep having them.
I was just going to say, that's a list of what we're already having.
With Hurricane Harvey, how is that not a wake-up call to have far more rain than had ever fallen in one place in the United States in history, and yet here we are still not heeding that lesson. So I don't know what that wake-up call will be, whether it'll come from a climate disaster, whether it'll come just from what makes most economic sense, is that right now, the cheapest ways to add electricity are through those renewables, where they're not protected behind our Great Wall of Tariffs, the best performing, most cost-effective cars in the world.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning extreme weather. I think that's absolutely right. People forget that Beryl, while it got us as a Cat 1, it was a Cat 5 in the Caribbean. I mean, it was setting records.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and look at what Melissa has done to Jamaica. It's devastating what we're seeing in the climate. Mm-hmm. That's why we need climate change.
Those rapid intensifications that can only happen with oceans that are getting so warm.
You're right, sir.
Daniel Cohen is a professor of civil and environmental engineering at Rice University. Daniel, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, we're going to preview a movie written and starring a Houston native. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
/TS10.
Want to binge All Creatures Great and Small? Catch up on Nova or revisit Ken Burns documentaries? You can with PBS Passport. With a gift of $5 or more per month to Houston Public Media, you'll get access to PBS Passport that lets you watch your favorite programs anytime you want. Support the programs you love and enjoy them on your own schedule with PBS Passport. Make your gift now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Support comes from Houston Symphony. Journey from darkness into light at Jones Hall as Maestro Uri Valchua leads Dmitri Shostakovich's Symphony No. 10, November 21st through November 23rd. Details at houstonsymphony.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Yesterday, the award-winning film Charlie Bird, which took the top prize at the 2025 Tribeca Festival, was screened here in Houston at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston as part of this year's Houston Cinema Arts Festival. Filmed in the Houston area, the film follows the unlikely bond that develops between a music therapist, played by the film's writer, Samantha Smart, and a teenage patient who is battle-hardened after years of treatment. To tell us more about Charlie Bird, we're joined now by its writer, producer, and star, Samantha Smart. Samantha, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And welcome home, really. You're from, what, League City?
I am born and raised, and as you can see, I'm in my dad's office with his Texas flag, so I'm here. Fun note, you guys were just talking about Beryl. Our first day of filming was, I think, 2 or 3 days after Beryl came through, and we didn't have electricity. So yeah, the extreme weather affected all industry.
As we have this conversation, if you want to join in, you can give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870.
So I love the whole concept of this. I did not know much about music therapy being used for treatment. So talk to us a little bit about that, because that's a really important part of this whole script.
Yeah, it was so inspiring to me, the people who do this work. There's real empirical evidence out there that proves the neurological, biological, scientific aid that music therapy and all creative arts therapists give patients, whether it's NICU babies, end of life care, um, rehabilitative care. I find the work to be truly inspiring and important. And I really wanted to see it on screen and showcase this vocation. And I don't think a lot of people know about it. And I know for certain in hospitals, like all of the arts, they're typically the first on the chopping block, or if there's no funding for anything extra, or even if they do have a music therapy or an arts therapy program, they're really underfunded and understaffed. So I really wanted to showcase that.
So what sparked your interest in doing, I know, making a film, writing a script, pulling it together, it's going to take a time commitment. There's got to be something about the story that truly brought you into it, that made you say, this is something I need to share. When you first became aware of it, how you personally were involved with it, what was the spark for you?
I was going through my own grief, and during the pandemic, I knew people who did this work. And between the two of those things, I really wanted to artistically get something out of me. And I found the page, which was therapeutic and cathartic. I wanted to, again, showcase this work. I wanted to go back to Texas and show the beauty of where I'm from. League City is not necessarily on everybody's map, but I wanted to explore where I was from and the site of music and care. And really, I wanted to show the patient's journey, but also the healer, and how the healer sometimes also needs healing. I don't think we see that enough.
Yeah. You know, Samantha, you're talking about League City and showing its beauty. As somebody who was, from there, how did you decide where to shoot, and how did that come about when you were looking at that from an artistic lens?
Yeah, I mean, so we had very limited resources. So when I was thinking about where we could film, I just called in my community. My third grade teacher, Mary Anthematin Dominguez, she was instrumental in helping us. In fact, we shot at Dickinson High School. They have an incredible program where they have medical training facilities. So actually, our hospital in the film is a high school. So we were able to film in the summer, which I don't recommend because it was 100 degrees and after a hurricane, but
no electricity. Yeah. So we have a call waiting, but I want you to tell us just a little bit about the plot, because we've talked about the music therapy. Tell me, you played the music therapist, I guess, and then who is the patient?
That's played by the wonderful, remarkable Gabriela Ochoa Perez. She plays Charlie. She's an incredible actress, and this patient was an amalgamation of myself when I was in high school and feeling very creative, my friend Eric, who passed away, and all kiddos who get sick and have to deal with that and feel the struggle of that. So Gabby was amazing, and I think the two of us working together is one of my favorite acting experiences, of all time.
Well, we have someone, I think, who saw the film just last night. Sally from Central Houston is on the line. Sally, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, thank you. I did see the film last night, and it is the most beautiful, touching, meaningful film, and I just wanted to congratulate you. It's a gorgeous film, and it gives you a good cry and also good laughs, and I thought the acting was great. The cinematography was great, and it just makes you feel like Houston. You just felt like you were right here with the roadside ditches and the center point easements down the way, and it's a great. Everybody should see this film. It was wonderful. Congratulations.
Sally, we were just talking about not a lot of people know about musical therapy. Did you learn something from this film?
Yes. I mean, I've heard actually more about art therapy, and that plays a role in the film too, but I hadn't really heard that much about music therapy for patients. And that was really interesting to me to just see how that brought out the patients and gave them comfort and just something else to focus on other than their illness.
Well, that's Samantha. We're talking to Samantha Smart, who wrote and acted and produced this film. That's got to be heartwarming to hear that kind of reaction to this, to Charlie Bird.
It's been overwhelming, the response on the festival circuit, the people who are affected by this. And thank you, Sally, for saying what you said. I think one of the things that I wanted to do was really honor this work. And some of the screenings, we've had some folks come up to us, me and Libby Ewing, the director, to say, I'm a music therapist. I work with kids. I'm feeling really burnt out. I'm feeling really unseen. And they've said that this got it right, and we feel re-inspired to continue the work. And for me, it sounds cheesy, but that's like the real prize here, because it's nice to get these awards, but to make those people feel like they're seen in this way is really important. It was really important to us.
But Samantha, in many ways, receiving one of the top prizes at the 2025 Tribeca Festival is such an honor and recognition. For you, what does that mean for people to see your work and be recognized at that level?
It's very surreal.
Yeah.
We made this thinking, we're going to make something for ourselves as artists. We hope a few people will see it. We hope that it will be good. And so when they called our name that day, I think the shock was so insane that it took several weeks, I think, for us to fully comprehend it. And we're still comprehending it. But I think if anyone's listening to this who wants to make something and is not connected or didn't go to some graduate school or has a built-in network or rich parents or all of those things that can sometimes make things easier, this was made with nothing, and it was made with no connections and no backdoor phone calls. So if we can do it, you can do it. I hope people hear that.
That's awesome.
Let me talk to you a little bit about filmmaking, too, as a vehicle for getting your ideas and thoughts out there. A lot of people talk about, what you were just talking about now, it's so hard to get something made. It's even harder to get things seen. Streaming has changed the whole concept of how pictures get out there. For you, the motivation in doing it this way and putting it out so that people can learn from the story you're trying to tell. How does film work as the medium for you still to deliver these kind of messages?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think film can really permeate to many corners of the world. We've been blessed that we can show this in theaters, and people sitting in a theater with other people connecting is obviously I think one of the best ways to experience a movie. But if this eventually finds its way to a kiddo who's going through something like this, or a healthcare worker that's going through something like this, and they're on their phone in their home and they're alone and they feel seen, that's why we made the movie. I once thought this could be a play, and maybe it could be a play, but this feels like it might be able to reach some more people. And I think for me as a storyteller, there's so much you can do through sound and visuals, and in my own body as an actor, I really want to represent people who are underrepresented, and those three things you can really do in a way that the medium of filmmaking really serves. And also, it's not a solo sport; it's a team sport. Our cinematographer, our gaffer, the sound mixer, the production design, our director, all the actors. It's really this, I'm a huge choir nerd. So when I used to be in choir, it was sort of all these voices would come together to make something really beautiful. So I find filmmaking to be similar to that.
So where can we see Charlie Bird?
Well, we screened last night with at the Museum of Fine Arts, and we have, I think, a couple of more festivals, but we do have good news coming.
Yeah.
You'll be able to see the film. I can't say today, but please.
We love breaking news.
Yes.
We love breaking news.
I'm sorry.
Please,
Yeah,
Samantha, go ahead.
Sounds like you're going to be streaming somewhere. And let me tell you, as a meteorologist, I know you had trouble with Beryl. I understand you're going to be filming your next movie in Paris, so I'd be more than happy to join you.
Yes, I'm so excited. I fell in love with a French guy named Pierre, and now he's my husband. And I'm so excited to tell a love story that's set between Paris and New York. So I'm really excited about that.
What about Paris and Houston, Samantha?
She's done Houston.
I can make a Paris, Texas. That's like the film of all films. Like, I'll make that remake.
Well, congratulations on the success of Charlie Bird, Samantha.
Can't wait to stream it.
We can't wait to see it. Samantha Smart is the writer, producer, and star of the award-winning film Charlie Bird. Again, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And, well, that brings
We
us
did it.
to
No,
the end
we're
of
already
our
done?
show on a Monday, on a beautiful Monday.
We were packed. And
We
don't
were.
forget,
Good news
it's going to
is-
be in the 30s tonight, so really bundle up. Our coldest night since April.
All right.
So be careful.
And the good news is we'll be back again tomorrow.
We'll be back tomorrow. So thank you for watching and listening to Hello Houston. Again, we'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7. Have a great Monday, Houston.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
On Fresh Air, you'll hear conversations with entertaining people like Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson.
I gave him one take, one sound, one voice, and that was it. Blah, 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 blah. And Matt, his eyebrows went up, his tongue came out of his mouth. He's like, oh my God, that's him, that's Bart, that's him. You got the part.
The most interesting people in show business tell their stories on Fresh Air.
Fresh Air